Okay, so I lied and I didn't get this video out on Saturday. It's Sunday, but what the f... Hello, welcome if you're new, or welcome back to Goddess of Gore. My name is Vix and I like to talk about horror, thriller, fantasy and sci-fi books. This is my delayed TBR video from last Tuesday because I was just too ill to film, so you'll have me today and then again on Tuesday for my usual upload. I've already talked way too much about this, so let's get on with it. February then, the shortest of months but one filled with expectation, with the peaking of spring just around the corner. For me, it is my worst month of the year, but I will be staying busy and positive throughout, just so I can keep afloat. So what else is happening then? Well, in the old US of A, it's Black History Month. Not here in the UK though, we have that in October, so in light of that, I have bigger plans for October. To read predominantly from Black authors fully, so I'm only lightly taking part in Jessie's from Bowties and Books Blackathon 2023. They have created an amazing readathon highlighting books from non-white authors, and I will list all of the videos that Jessie has posted with recommendations for each of the teams and the main Blackathon announcement video in the description box below. There are 3 teams: Granny Nanny, Hatshepsut and Ocean. This year I will be reading 2 books for the team Hatshepsut. So the prompts for this are: number 1, read a book from a trans black author, and I have chosen Rivers Solomon and their book Sorrowland. And I don't have a copy of this yet because I've reserved it from the library. I was supposed to have read this book for my Locus Award winners back in August, but I didn't because I had way too many books. So this also fits the second prompt of a black girl protagonist who is not afraid to take up space, or at least I think it does, since the main protagonist of this book does have to fight back in some way or form. And then the third prompt is a book that is set largely in one place or has creative architecture, and for this I've chosen House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson. This I have on ebook already since I was given an ARC by the publisher Random House in the UK, so it's about time I read it, isn't it? I think this is set mainly in a house since the main character is a housemaid, and then House of Hunger will also fit the last prompt, exploring class, since she is raised in the slums. She works her way up from a pickpocket to a cleaning maid and then finally to become a blood maid for a countess. There is an optional group read of She Would Be King by Wayetu Moore for this team as well. Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon is about a young woman called Vern. A pregnant Vern escapes a religious compound only to give birth in the shelter of the woods. She plans to raise her newborn twins in these woods, far from the outside world, but the community she has escaped from will not let her go so easily. She undergoes a metamorphosis to protect her family, and in order to understand the changes she has begun, she will have to uncover the secrets of the cult and the religious compound she has fled and the violence that made it. And House of Hunger by Alexis Henderson is a book that follows Marion Shaw, raised in the slums where all she has ever known is wanting food, money, housing. Desperate to escape her current mistress, she sees an advert for a blood maid in the house of luxury with a reputation in a town she knows nothing about. Lives Countess Lisabeth, who runs the house of hedonistic virtues, and when Marion's housemates and other blood maids start to go missing, a dangerous game of cat and mouse ensues, a game which Marion will quickly have to learn the rules for if she wants to survive. And then very quickly, because I won't be getting to this book, at least not this month, She Who Would Be King, a magical realism debut novel. It is a retelling of the story of Libertia, following three characters who by sheer luck and coincidence meet, and together their shared special gifts will relieve tensions between African American settlers and the indigenous tribes to start a harmonious nation. One readathon down. What else have I got? Gothic Hearts Reading Challenge is a challenge for the whole of February, and this is a Gothic romance inspired readathon hosted by Regina from Regina's Haunted Library and co-hosted by E.D. Lewis from Lewis Reviews, D.L. Tillery and Aphrodite Lee. And the prompts for this one are: number 1, read a Gothic romance novel from before 1950, and for this I am reading Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier from 1938. Number 2, read a trade paperback Gothic romance. Well, I don't have one for this, but Rebecca is on paperback, so does that count? No, probably not. But hey ho. Number 3, read a newer Gothic romance, for example from the 2000s plus. Number 4, read from a book that has a queer main character or has LGBTQ plus characters. And for those two prompts I've chosen The Ghost of Hilcombe Hall by Joshua Ian from 2020. And this involves a male gay main character. But unfortunately neither of these books fit the final book prompt, number 5, to read from a BIPOC author. Not because I couldn't find a book, more to do with the amount of books I already have on my TBR. I did try to find one book that hit all of the prompts, but I chose one book off my library shelf and one very quick ebook that I knew I could read in one sitting. And the final prompt, number 6, is to watch a Gothic romance novel. So I will be settling down for Crimson Peak at some point during the month because it is just so beautiful to look at. And then you can gain extra kudos and extra points for a photo of yourself running away from a castle, which if you watch Regina's announcement video you will understand why. All of the links to the mentioned videos will be below, so please go and watch them and take part if you want to. So Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier is telling the story from our unnamed narrator in Monte Carlo, who is the companion of a rich American woman, a woman who becomes ill, and so our narrator starts a friendship with a wealthy man named Maxim de Winter, a rich widower. After just 2 weeks of courtship, they are to be married, and so begins a life with him on his estate Manderley. We meet their sinister housekeeper, who is still a huge fan of the first Mrs. de Winter, the Rebecca from the title, and so starts a campaign of hate against the new one. The Ghost of Hilcombe Hall by Joshua Ian, as I said, I have this on ebook and is only 130 pages long. It is set in 1910 and our main character Joshua steps into the foggy, atmospheric manor of the Earl of Stanley and his family to tend to their overrun gardens. But Joshua becomes besotted with an old painting of one of the family's ancestors. Even in his dreams he is obsessed. Ghostly happenings and strange scary noises. Every night he is visited by the man from the paintings and an illicit affair begins. Is this some cruel trick, or is the Stanley ancestor all real? So what about all the year-long readathons I'm taking part in? Yes, those are still my main reads. So carrying on around the disc in 800 or so days, reading from Terry Pratchett. Book 3 and 4 are Equal Rights and Mort. Equal Rights, we get to meet Granny Weatherwax, the first introduction to the witch characters of the Discworld series, but this starts off with a wizard at death's door handing over his staff to an eighth son of an eighth son who is destined to be the next wizard. But what he doesn't realise is it's not a son, it's a daughter, because, you know, wizards aren't too bright on the disc. In this book, we are taught the differences between male and female magic systems and the difference between women and witches, as Granny Weatherwax takes the eighth not-son-esque to the unseen university in the city of Ankh-Morpork, where wizards are kept. And Mort is the first in the... You see that? It's the first in the death books of the Discworld, and it introduces farmer's son Mort, who quite frankly isn't cut out for farming, so his dad takes him to an apprenticeship fair in the hopes of fobbing him off and letting someone else deal with him. Just as they are giving up, here comes death, and he will take Mort on. But is Mort a better soul collector and reaper than he was a farmer? Probably not. And then the rest of the year-longs announced by Leanne from Leanne's Library. The Witcher read-along. The Witcher read-along book 2 is The Sword of Destiny by Andrzej Sapkowski. Following on from The Last Wish, we again get 6 more short stories from the Witcher world as Geralt hunts monsters and demons. Neil Gaiman read along with Stardust. This is another reread for me, and I know this book gets a lot of bad reviews from people expecting it to be a little bit more like the film, and it's not. I do enjoy this as an accompaniment to the film though. As I said in my review of it last year, this is the bones of the film, but it's really not as bad as some people say it is. We meet Tristan as he attempts to collect a fallen star to impress the local beauty, Victoria. But in order to do so, he has to leave the village of Wall to the land of Fairy, and so begins an adventure of a lifetime. If you haven't read this before, then please do, and then watch the film, because they are definitely a treat. Next, the Dark Materials read-along book 2 is The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. So we left Lyra in the snow in the Arctic at the end of Northern Lights, and this picks up on the story after a young boy called Will travels through a portal after accidentally killing a man, and he meets Lyra on the other side. They are in a land of spectres and angels, and Will helps Lyra search for a powerful weapon, presumably the knife. And then the 5 Warrior Angels read along with Leanne and Aaron from Booked and Busy, The Blackest Heart. Now, I thought the first book was big. Well, hold on to your pants, because this one is even longer at 960 pages, and I get the feeling it's taking the piss a little bit. And I even checked the third one just to see, and yes, they get bigger every time. This is definitely going to be an audio only, because I can't read something this long on ebook. I will want to die at the end. Not even the end, halfway through. So book 2 of the 5 Warrior Angel trilogy, The Blackest Heart by Brian Lee Durfee. In the first book we got to meet the gang and then get them together, a motley crew of teenagers with a destiny as foretold in ancient prophecy. A murderous bunch of grisly characters. This was pretty dark fantasy. I was impressed with the Forgetting Moon, but wow, does it have to be so long, Brian? Brian, long, too long. But if it's anything like book 1, the action does not stop though. It's full of deceits, power-hungry politicians and clergymen, assassins and knights. So now the kids are on a mission to seek the magical objects of the prophecy, obviously with a bunch of bad guys on their tails waiting to take them and claim them for themselves. And I'm sure the body count will just get higher and higher as it goes along. After all that, I will need my book club pick from the Sweater Weather Cozy Fantasy Discord group, and the book for this month is House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, which I have already read 3 years ago and absolutely loved it. It was the book that started my need for cozy in the first place. So if you don't know what this is about, where have you been? This is told from the perspective of a lonely man called Linus, who goes about his day in grayscale. His house is grey, his work is grey, the weather is grey. Linus works for a kind of social services that inspects the suitability of foster homes, and we find him at a low point in his life. I mean, his life is pretty miserable except for his little dog, who he absolutely adores and is the only good thing in his life. That is, until he is given a very secret mission to inspect a place that does not exist, to check on some kids that definitely do not exist. On a tiny island, Linus will learn that life doesn't have to be grey. It can be a rainbow. Now, I did hear some negativity about TJ Clune the other day on someone else's channel, but I genuinely do not know what this is about. I did try and find out what it was, you know, just in case there was some drama going on I was missing out on, and I just couldn't find out anything. So if me reading this book from this author offends you, please let me know why before things get wild. I'm only here for the gossip, you know. And then I hope to get the Winternight trilogy finished this month, and I hope I enjoy this one better than The Girl in the Tower. Yes, I am reading The Winter of the Witch. Can you see it? And from what I've heard, it's a stunning conclusion to the series. It, of course, follows our main character Vasha and the awful priest Constantine, the Prince of Moscow, and the frost demon Morozko. In the final action-packed instalment, the whole of the city is in a place of chaos as Vasha, desperate to save herself from the stake as she has been named a witch by the inhabitants. I'm hoping for more of the Slavic folklore characters to be in this one, because the magic and myths are really what this series has been about for me. And then to finish off, a couple of new releases I want to get to. Whispering Muse by Laura Purcell, it was released on the 2nd of February, set in Victorian London, because that is Laura's genre, of course. This is set in the West End and tells a tale about a rumour of a leading actress, Lilith, who has apparently made a pact with the Greek muse Melpomene in order to be the greatest actress on the stage. The owner of the theatre's wife gets whiff of these rumours and in a fit of jealousy employs one of the dressers at the theatre, Jenny, to spy on Lilith. Desperate for the money, she agrees. Jenny finds herself feeling sorry for Lilith and befriends her, because even though she's an amazing actor on the stage, off the stage her life is pretty tragic. But when strange events begin to take place around the theatre, Jenny wonders whether the rumours are true and fears that when the muse comes calling for payment, will the cost be too high? And then the final book this month, episode 13. Although released already in the US, this isn't available until February the 23rd in the UK, and this will be my second book by Craig DiLouie. This is told from a crew of a new ghost hunt TV show called Fade to Black, as they go and investigate a derelict mansion. This was a place of the Paranormal Research Foundation back in the 1970s and is reputably haunted. This is told in an epistolary style of tapes and journal entries about how this episode went so very wrong. I know this style of novel isn't everyone's cup of tea, but after my first experience of DiLouie's writing, I can't ignore his newest novel, because The Children of Red Peak was 5 stars, and I think it was my #1 book of August, although don't quote me there, I can't remember. There are a lot of new books that have caught my eye this month, so I will be doing another video highlighting the ones I'll be wanting to read as soon as possible, so look out for that in a couple of weeks. So that is it. That's everything I want to hopefully fit into the month of February. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today. It means so much that you choose to spend your time with little old me. Let me know in the comments below what you're reading this month, or what you think about the books I've mentioned if you've already read them. Are you taking part in any readalongs or readathons this month, or ones coming up that you think that I would like to? I hope you make some good book choices, my friends, and just for those romantics out there, I will leave you with this. I love you, not because of who you are, but because of who I am when I'm with you. I hope you can spend Valentine's Day with someone special, and by that I mean you, because there isn't anyone as special as you. Until next time, bye-bye. This is told in an epistolary style. This is told in an epistolary. This is told in an epistolary style of